I will be discussing how TV has not only shaped the American presidency, but the American presidential campaign. It first starts off with the case study, Television News and American Public Life, that explains how the first presidents of the TV era wielded the power of TV to invent their own narratives to serve to the American people. What I came to notice is while some of the presidents successfully leveraged their national platform, like Kennedy, others took excessive advantage of it, like Johnson, or even made enemies with it, like Nixon. However, their television persona ultimately was not the deciding factor in the final fate of their presidency. Johnson, perhaps, is the best example. He proves that sheer national coverage alone is insufficient to convince the American public of doing a good job when you're not. This is because at the end of the day, the president must deliver on his promises and will be judged accordingly. So in terms of the presidential terms, television does not play as big of a role as it does before during the presidential elections. I found that television has had a bigger impact on the race to the White House more than during the presidency itself because television has been able to capture the personality, charisma, or lack thereof of the candidates in a way that print media and radio cannot. And because so much of voters' decisions are based off of candidates' likability, charisma, and charm, candidates who can swing the American public have a better chance of winning. In fact, this factor from television has become so important to the presidential elections, it has permanently changed the very nature of the campaign cycle. Presidential campaigns have been sensationalized into a national spectacle where the focus is more on carefully crafted personas than actual policies. This is exemplified first in 1960s with the Kennedy-Nixon debates. Where Kennedy is much more charismatic than Nixon, he is able to appear more confident, experienced, and likable than Nixon, despite Nixon's experience on Kennedy as already being a vice president. Kennedy's charisma captured the hearts of millions of Americans who saw him, Jackie, and his kids as a representation of the quintessential American family of the 1950s. TV also helped JFK earn this celebrity intrigue. Not only do Americans see candidates from the same apparatus they do as Hollywood actors, watching them satisfies the same desire to be entertained. This is another reason why the Kennedy-Nixon debates were so highly viewed because its structure was completely new in a way that it entertained its audience. Over the years, TV news networks have learned to report on the controversial candidates for higher entertainment value to increase their TV ratings and viewerships. However, TV has sensationalized politics because TV networks are competing with entertainment networks for viewers' attention. Because of 24-hour news cycles, news networks are constantly competing with regular television programs for audience attention. This leads to the over-sensationalization of the rivalries between presidential candidates, and oftentimes the news networks will try to create animosity where there may be none. A great example of this was back in the DNC debates when Bernie Sanders was asked a question about Elizabeth Warren that really just played into identity politics, clearly to spark controversy to create a more interesting debate. But the news networks are overcrowding the audience with so much irrelevant information that the only things that rise to the surface are the most extreme stances. So many of the things that are most reported on are not necessarily the issues that have the most salience to the lives of the American people, but rather the most controversial hot button debates. So much integrity of the political process is lost when we put petty clapbacks above actual constructive debates. To my final point, TV news coverage has now created a system that rewards outlandish comments over sensible and moderate stances. Television pulls the candidates into extremes, if not by the candidates themselves in order to score points, then by the newsroom in order to score ratings. It's these drastic misincentives provided from the TV news outlets that gave Donald Trump so much coverage in the 2016 election and helped spread his message to many voters in Middle America who may have not have been as aware of his campaign had the campaign only remained on print media. While in its initial form, televised debates gave Americans unprecedented access to who the presidential candidates were, TV news networks today, in trying to compete with entertainment networks, have reduced the quality of political discourse in favor of creating fake personas that sell to a drama-hungry audience.